Afternoon. My name is Jamel Hodges. I serve as the Dean of Students here at the University of South Carolina, Aiken. I know a lot of you, most of you. If I don't know you, at least seen your faces. Welcome to De-escalation and conflict resolution. One of the things, and I'm going to talk really quickly. So if there's a point in time where I'm talking too fast and I need to slow down, please let me know, and I will do so. But I am going to go through these things really quickly so we can get into the activity portion of today's event. Sound good? Love that. All right, so and Jeremiah, I'm going to try not to move too much, so you don't have to follow me too much. But yeah. So de-escalation. All right, de-escalation is the process of lowering the intensity of a conflict, often using communication techniques to prevent a situation from becoming more aggressive or violent. Right. So when we think about de-escalation, right, there are a lot of scenarios where we can pretty much see de-escalation happen, right? Think about sports. Two players from two opposing teams, right? There's a lot of passion there. There's a lot of, I want to win. We are competitors in this situation. It is me versus you. And every day and twice on Sunday, I'm going to pick me, all right? Sometimes those situations come to a point where that passion kind of spills over, and now people's emotions are running really high. Potentially, maybe getting into a fight, right? The only sport where I see where they don't necessarily de-escalate is hockey. In every other sport, the referee jumps in to de-escalate, right? Because the goal of, for example, a basketball game is not to fight, it is to score baskets. That is the goal of the game, right? Not fight. And so the referees will jump in a lot of the times to ensure that while emotions are really high, they're making sure that the situation doesn't become more aggressive or violent. That makes sense? All right. So we're going to play a quick game, and it's a really quick game of have you ever. Y'all ready for this? No? Yes? Maybe so. I'm waiting on my. Here we go. All right. For one, have you ever had to mediate a disagreement between two members of your student organization who had competing ideas for how an event should happen? Yes. All right. I have as well, right? I've been there. I'll tell you one of the things that's really important in those conversations is always remembering where people are coming from. What is their goal? A lot of the times people have the exact same goal, and the argument is not about the goal, it's about how to reach that goal. Is that a negative conversation to have? No, right? Some people may say, hey, make this left turn. Some people may say, make a right turn. But if both turns get you to the same point, right, it's not the goal we're arguing about. It's really just how to reach the goal, all right? One of the things I always tell people in any of my classes, if we're going to disagree, we're not going to disagree as people, right? I'm not going to disagree with you as a person. I'm not going to say Antonio's idea is dumb. I'm not going to say that. What I am going to do, though, I am going to challenge the idea that Antonio is presenting. That makes sense? So Antonio says the sky is blue, but I believe the sky is orange. I'm going to say, hey, I understand you believe the sky is blue, but I believe the sky is orange because da-da-da-da-da-da, right? Are we going to disagree? Absolutely, right? Antonio's going to say, can you not see the sky is blue? And I'm going to say, well, can you not see the sky is orange? Now, yes, the sky is blue. We know this, right? But in a situation like that, some people may find themselves a little bit more tied to the idea that the sky is orange, and their passions get a little elevated. Emotions may get a little high. So let's put another one in. Have you ever needed to address a conflict between teammates when emotions were high and communication was breaking down? All right. So now we're getting to something a little less specific. It's just, hey, we're in a conversation and emotions are getting high, voices are getting elevated, and now we're in a space where, hey, this is going a little left. Well, we didn't think that it was going to go this direction. We thought that the conversation was going to be an easy one, But now the conversation has gone a little left. I've been in those conversations, in those situations too. It's like, whoa, what just happened? That's a conflict, all right? Have you ever had to calm down a peer who was frustrated about a policy or decision made by your club, your organization, or the university as a whole? All right, so I see a couple of hands. All right. We're finding ourselves in a space where we see a lot of conflict. All right. And I have one more. Have you ever realized that a message that was sent via group me, email, or text was misinterpreted and you had to clarify to prevent further tension? Have you ever? Yeah. Have you ever realized that a message that you sent in group me, email, or text was misinterpreted and you had to clarify to prevent further tension? Yes. I'll tell you, I'm going to give you a personal story really quickly. All right. I am the type of person where I'm pretty much the exact same all day, every day. Like I don't. Well, you've known me for a little bit. I'm pretty much the exact same person every single day. Now, sometimes that's a great thing. Sometimes that's a terrible thing. The times where it's a terrible thing is through email, right? Maybe text. Because if you ask me a question, I may just say yes or no. I was joking with Webb earlier. One of the things that I do every day is problem solve. Every day. It just seems like something happens every day and I have to problem solve. So sometimes I'm moving really quickly and you may, for example, Antonio may ask me a question and I'm really quickly just like, yeah, do this, da 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 da, get out my face, gotta go, right? What did I just say to Antonio? I just said that what he brought to me might not have been that important, right? And so I have had to very intentionally come to a point where when I am conveying any message via, especially via email, it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you are doing well. It doesn't matter if I'm sending the email from my phone or if I'm sending the email from my laptop, from my computer. I'm probably gonna say good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I hope you are doing well. Now, does it seem cliche? Absolutely. I'm gonna be the first one to say, right? A lot of the times at this point in time in my career, since I've been here for 4 years, people really don't think at this point that Jamel really hopes that they're doing well. Although I do, it's just, well, Jamel says that in every email. But by doing that, what does that do? It gives people a good impression, okay? It makes the person feel valued, right? It makes the person, it kind of lowers their guard a little bit, kind of brings that wall down. It's like, oh, well, he said good morning, or he said good afternoon. I guess I'll say it back, right? That was really polite. Thank you. Right? Sometimes I'll say, good afternoon, Antonio. I hope you're doing well. No, you may not, da 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 da. If you want to, da 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 da, you must, da 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 da, right? I just told Antonio, hey, no, you can't do what you thought you were going to do. Is that a positive email? But the way I communicate it via email, he doesn't take it personally. Does that make sense? Things we have to think about preemptively avoiding conflict in our relationships. So here's some things to consider about de-escalation. The environment. When you are in a space, a professional space, there are certain ways in which we will address conflict and certain ways in which we will not address conflict. One of the things I always tell people, if you are a person who likes to put your hands on other people, the professional space is not for you. There's no situation in the professional space where people should be putting their hands on the other person. Whether you agree, disagree, whether you hate the person, love the person, whether they keyed your car, there is never a point where in the professional space, fisticuffs should be the answer. Not one, right? Unless, of course, you're a UFC fighter or different conversation, right? But There are some environments where, although that is never okay, where that could be a little bit more possible of a situation. What about if you're out with your friends, right, in a downtown bar? People may be drinking some alcohol. Inhibitions may be lowered. Decision making may be rocky. Propensity for a physical altercation to happen is fairly high, right? Or at least higher than that of in a professional space, right? So you got to know your environment. Know your environment. Sometimes in a professional space, if people are arguing, just let them argue because like you're not going to get in a fight, so, or you shouldn't at least, right? But if you're downtown and people have been drinking, you may be a little bit more uneasy about letting that conversation go a little bit too far. Does that make sense? So know your environment, all right? Figure out where you are and assess the situation, right? Know your role or your position. When you know your role or position, that allows you to recognize how much power you have in the situation. I'll give you a case in point. A police officer has a lot of authority, right? They have a lot of power in the situation. If there is an altercation that is happening, verbal or physical, and the officer says, stop, people are more likely to stop than if it's an innocent bystander who is saying, stop. Does that make sense? Right? Why? Well, because they have a gun. But then also, they can arrest people, right? There are more consequences that come with interacting with a police officer, all right? So understand your role, right? You may not be the person that has a lot of authority in that situation, but you may also be unofficially, right? Unofficially in a space where you and one of the individuals in the altercation may have a personal relationship, and you can talk that person down to de-escalate the entire situation. All right. Potential risks. All right. What if, like, are you the right person to step in? Right? If your boss and somebody else's boss and they are going back and forth, and you jump in to de-escalate as the person who reports to one of those individuals, are you the right person to step in? Right? Could you be risking employment at that point? Right? It might not be, you might have to be uncomfortable for a little bit and just let that play out. All right? But after assessing the risks, it's like, hey, all right, the risk ain't that bad. I can go in and de-escalate this situation with minimal injury to myself, physically, emotionally, financially, whatever. All right? Then, hey, yes, right? You may be the person to de-escalate that situation. If people are full out fighting, though, and we have a brawl on our hands, right? And you're a smaller person, you should probably not be the person, right? Because that's a risky situation, all right? So we have to look at potential risks. The level of agitation. Are people super loud? Are we already at the physical violence piece, or are we approaching that? Or are we at elevated voices, or are we, right, just disagreeing? All right, there's levels to it. Me personally, I'm the type of person, if I'm agitated, I'm gonna say, you know what? I don't even want to talk about this no more. I'm done. And people, no, I'm legit done. Right? The more you talk, I'm not gonna change what I'm saying. You can talk, but you're gonna be talking to yourself. I'm done with the conversation. Now, that's me agitated, right? Now, if someone continues, then I'm like, all right, cool. Now I'm going to give you what you're asking for. Now I'm going to tell you exactly what is on my mind, and it may or may not hurt your feelings. Am I going to raise my voice? No. Even if the other person raises their voice, they ain't got nothing to do with me. But you asked for me to tell you what was on my mind. Now you're getting it. Other people aren't like that. Some people, you disagree with them, they automatically go to screaming and shouting, right? Lets you know that they may be a little bit more agitated than the person who is having a calm conversation. All right? So you got to look at the level of agitation. You could look at somebody's body language and tell how agitated they are. That makes sense? All right? So if me and Antonio we're having a conversation, we're like this, Do we look agitated? Right? Nah. But if me and Antonio are having a conversation, I'm like this. It's kind of agitated. What about this? Kind of agitated, right? Body language, right? What about this? Agitated, right? So you have to look at people's body language to see exactly where they are to determine their level of agitation, all right? De-escalation is abnormal. Not everybody is going to de-escalate a situation. What happens when a fight pops off? Tell me the first thing people do when a fight pops off. Run. All right, run. What was it? What? Pull the phones out. And they're recording. Ooh, we want to see the fight. Ooh, so we can post it on TikTok. And ooh. How many people you see in those TikTok videos trying to stop the fight? Maybe one. You may have one person. Usually it's a teacher, right? A person of authority. All right? By the time the person of authority has gotten there, there's already 20 people just around, sometimes way more than 20 people, just watching like. All of those people to de-escalate. Yet it's become normal to just watch. Right? The bystander, right? The bystander has an option. Right? You can do fight or flight, right? Or you can freeze. A lot of people will just freeze. We know that fighting is wrong. We know we shouldn't be fighting. But who wants to be the person who robs all of the people around of their entertainment? Right? You don't want to be that person because now you're the uncool one, right? So de-escalation isn't necessarily a normal skill that people flex. All right, so we gotta think about it like that, right? If you feel the need to de-escalate a situation, it is going to be uncomfortable, right? It is not a normal response to many situations, especially when there's conflict between people. But you don't have to be normal. You can be abnormal and de-escalate the situation. All right, and assess your safety. We talked about risk earlier, but assess your safety. I wouldn't suggest for anybody to jump in front of a bullet. That is a bad idea. There is only, I can count on one hand, how many people I'm jumping in front of a bullet for. And 3 of them are children. So that is what it is, right? Assess your safety, right? Assess your safety and assess the safety of everybody else around you. When I say that, if there is a fight happening and you are a licensed, registered gun owner, it defeats the purpose to pull out your gun to start spraying at people to stop the fight. Because now you're risking everybody else's safety, right? But in the same token, if somebody has a gun out, do you want to agitate that person any further? Right? So you have to assess the safety of everybody around to determine how you're going to de-escalate, if you're going to de-escalate. Does that make sense? Yeah? All right, signs of agitation: raised voice, right? Rapid speech, high-pitched voice, right? I'm the high-pitched voice one, or I used to be. Now I'm just kind of like, whatever. But when I was in high school, I'm like, so what you gonna do, huh? So what's up? That was me, right? I've evolved from that person. But yeah, high-pitched voice, fidgeting. You ever seen somebody just, does that not give you, it's giving a little agitated, right? Shaking, right? Some people physically shake when they get upset, when they get agitated. We have balled fists, right? We're not talking about the Arthur fist, right? But some people, like, they ball their fists up and they're just like, I'm sorry, if I'm talking to somebody and they ball their fists up, that's telling me that they're approaching the point where they want to fight. I'm either going to agitate them more, or I'm going to de-escalate the situation at that point. Why? Because it's going one way or the other, right? It's the body language is telling me it's going one way or the other, all right? Erratic movements. You ever seen, like, somebody in an argument, interpersonal, and then somebody hit one of them right there, they're posturing. They're trying to see where you are. They're trying to determine, hey, if I swing, are they gonna move? Cause it's getting that point, right? These erratic movements aren't just because somebody's upset in that moment, right? This is escalating to a point where we may not be able to come back from. All right. While gesturing, flailing of the hands, right? While gesturing is funny, right? Because right now nobody's really upset. But when you see people actually upset and they start getting to that point, we recognize, well, while gesturing really is kind of common. It just looks different for many people. Make sense? Pacing back and forth. I'm a pacer. All right. I'll walk around. I have my hands behind my back. That's when my fiance knows. She's like, hey, Jamel's he's getting a little upset. Jamel, just calm down. I am calm. No, you're not. What gave it away? Why are you walking back and forth? We're just talking about eggs. I don't get upset that easily. That was a joke. And then aggressive posturing. Earlier we talked about the squaring up. That's aggressive posturing, right? A lot of the times when we are in, or whether we are in the situation or we're a bystander of a situation, we see these things, and sometimes we let it go. We let it happen, right? See how far it's gonna go. But when we get to a certain point, like with the aggressive posturing, probably time for somebody to step in, right? So let's talk about communication, all right? Nonverbal stances towards the upset person, all right? When Antonio is upset, and I can tell visibly that he's upset. I got nothing to do with the situation. And I walk up to him, and I'm like, and I put my hands on him. You don't mind if I put, and I'm like, hey, man, calm down. That's about to piss him off so far. He is literally about to go through the roof. Don't touch me. Why are you trying to confine me? I need my freedom to move. All right? That's a nonverbal communication, but it happens. All right? About 85% of communication is nonverbal. You say so much literally without saying a word. If you're sleepy, I know you're sleepy. I can look you in your face and tell you're sleepy. If you're excited, I can look you in your face and tell you're excited. If you're so bored out of your mind at hearing my voice right now, I can tell that you're bored out of your mind. All right? Webb is a professor. Webb is actually really nice. If she sees somebody struggling to keep their eyes open in class, it's not that she doesn't see it. It's that she's choosing not to bother you and figure it out. That is a choice that she's made, right? But we see all of it. We see all of the nonverbals, the smirks, the eye rolls, when you cut your eyes at somebody, or when somebody walks in and you perk up, you're like, you got a crush on that person. We know, right? We know all of it, all right? We can see that. Why? Because you're communicating so much without saying a word. A lot of the time somebody walks in my office, if they look like something's wrong with them, the first thing that I say is, everything good? You all right? And they can tell me all day that, yeah, I'm fine. But their body language is telling me something completely different. Y'all been in that situation before? I'll tell you, that's the thing. Now, I do get agitated by that now. Don't tell me everything's fine when I can physically see that everything isn't. Just tell me that, hey, everything's not fine. I'm just kind of in a space where I don't want to talk about it right now. I can respect that. I can rock with that. All right? I'm sorry. De-escalation versus the willingness to get physical. There is a difference in de-escalating a situation and going in and grabbing someone to stop the situation. Those are two different things. Does that make sense? Because if there's a physical altercation happening and you go in and you're grabbing someone, you are not de-escalating. You are now in a space where you are now a part of the physical altercation. Does that make sense? Now, in the example where me and Antonio are arguing, and Zaire comes in and he's like, hey, look, I see where this is going. Y'all really need to calm down. I really don't think that it's worth what y'all arguing about right now. It's good, right? It's not terrible. Now, if me and Antonio are going back and forth, we're arguing, and Zaire comes and grabs my shirt and is like, hey, you need to calm down. Hey, player, you about to get what Antonio was about to get, right? So there's a difference there, okay? So we got to recognize there is a difference between de-escalation and willingness to get physical. If somebody thinks that you're willing to get physical and a physical altercation is already about to ensue, they may look at you as a threat as opposed to someone trying to de-escalate. That make sense? Active listening. Listen to the situation. Understand why people are upset. Maybe it's a misunderstanding, right? I can't tell you how many times people have been arguing about something. I'm like, I don't think you're saying that the right way. Did you think about it like this? Well, nah, I didn't think about it. Oh, I mean, listening tells me that you're upset about one thing, they're upset about something completely different. Y'all ain't even on the same page about what y'all arguing about, right? So I'm about to get mad because I can't keep up because they talking about one thing and you're talking about a completely different situation, right? So think about how you're listening, right? Your tone of voice while you're de-escalating the situation. Your tone of voice is so important, right? If you go into a de-escalation situation and you're trying to match the energy of those who are in the altercation, you might make it worse. I dealt with a student conduct situation earlier this semester. There were two individuals. They were in a verbal altercation, and I met with one person, and the person said, yeah, they said this, and I was like, oh, no, you're not going to say this to me, so I'm going to jump. Oh, I got to go 10 times higher, and then if you meet me here, I'm going higher. That's going to happen. That's going to happen in a verbal altercation where emotions are high. So if you come in as a third person, and you're aggressive with your tone, right? What do you think about it happening? And it's only so far you can go with words until a physical altercation ensues. All right? Don't fall victim to the barriers of communication. All right? Don't fall victim to raising your voice. Right? Don't fall victim to taking things personal. Don't fall victim to making things a monologue as opposed to making sure that it's a dialogue, right? Don't fall victim to using words, for example, profanity or threatening words in a situation. People are not going to respond to that, right? I'll tell you, if there's a situation popping off and someone comes into the situation, they're de-escalating. They said, "I wish you would." Da da da. You wish. Well, your wish is my command, right? Like, but if that person says, "Hey, I really wish you would calm down," right? I really wish you would bring it down a notch. That's different than "I wish you would." Those are two different "I wish you woulds," right? So we have to be cognizant of our communication when we're de-escalating situations. Sound good? De-escalation tactics. Oh, wow, I'm going too long. Direct de-escalation, all right? You give choices. When you give choices, you are in a situation where you're like, hey, we can do this, or we can do this, or we can do this. Which one, right? But this situation, we have to kind of end it, right? We have to get to a point, right? Setting limits. Hey, I recognize that you're upset, but you're talking really loud. I really need you to bring it down. Y'all can talk about whatever you want to talk about, but y'all are like, you're going too far. I need you to bring it back. All right. You can distract. All right. When you distract, you're refocusing the other person on something positive, right? That's an option. So me personally, if someone says, if someone's in an argument, I make this joke all the time. I'm like, oh, how about them Cowboys? Right? If you're a Cowboys fan, you're like, we suck. If you're not a Cowboys fan, you're like, yeah, y'all suck. Hey, something we can all agree on. Bet, right? But refocusing the energy, right? Changing the subject, okay? Changing the subject is a good one. Sometimes you can't change the subject though. Sometimes people are so focused in and locked in on a conversation at hand. Sometimes you just gotta jump in and just tell a joke and just make everybody else laugh, right? Distract from the entire situation. Sometimes you feel like you are just not equipped to be the person to de-escalate the situation. Sometimes you're just like, hey, look, they've gone way too far, and if I say something, I may get pulled in. That's not for me. Can you? And that's where delegate comes in. All right. We all know that one friend that's not scared to jump into any situation. Sometimes you got to tag that friend in. All right. Sometimes you got to really be like, hey, look, I'm not the person to deal with this. As a supervisor, I don't let my staff delegate conflicting situations to me. I go ahead and jump in. They don't have to delegate to me. If my staff is having a conflict with someone and my staff is right and they have the evidence showing that they are right, I was like, no, don't send the email. I'll send the email for you. And usually when I send the email, I don't know why, because I really don't got much power, but when I send the email, then we start getting results and we get to the bottom of what it is we need to be doing as opposed to going back and forth. That makes sense? So you can distract, you can do direct de-escalation, you can distract, or you can delegate, all right? That's my time, all right? Actually, I'm kind of over time, but this is my contact information. If you have any questions about anything at any point in time, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll try to help out as much as I can, if I can even be the person to help. Sound good?